Sonicware just sent me their lo-fi sampler for review, is what I would have loved to say. In reality, I bought it with my own hard-earned money. Not at full price though, I bought it second-hand, because I do like groove boxes and I really wanted to check out if you could get the same functionality and playability, maybe is the word, for a much smaller price tag than normally. When it comes to the outside of the device or the enclosure of it, I do think it feels a bit cheap. It's generally made of plastic. The knobs feels like the ones you find on the Korg Volca series. And the buttons, even though they look like my old Game Boy, are not very nice to the touch. I do like, however, that they made the pads velocity sensitive, and I actually like that the microphone of this unit isn't the highest quality, because that just emphasizes the lo-fi part of this sampler. But the outside is really nothing to write home about. I do like that it's battery powered. It really reminds me of my old Game Boy, the first edition. And I do like that you have the headphone output on the front. That's the outside of the unit. I would like to make a track with it just to showcase what it's like when being operated. So let's try to make a lo-fi track. We'll start by making a new project, and I gotta say I love these arrows and these two buttons. It reminds me of my old Game Boy, and it even has the same size, pun intended. So select new, empty, save, no. And here's the first thing I'd like to address. It's a bit slow when it comes to both saving and creating projects. Guess we'll just have to wait. There we go. So first of all, we have to select samples for the sample pool to load it onto one of these 8 tracks. So to do so, we press this button, and I'm gonna browse via tags. And I actually like this search function, because then you can limit the search to these categories on the screen. So if we want to see or hear only bass drums, we'll press track 1, and now we can audition bass drums. And here's where the lo-fi part comes in. You have many of the same samples in different qualities, 12K and 24K. And kudos to Sonicware, there's a lot of samples to choose from. I tend to pick more than one kick sample, so I can audition them when creating the music. I'd rather have more than one to choose from. You could always go back and load more kick samples, but this is just the way I prefer to do it. So now we have a bunch. We'll press load, and then it's ready to play on every track. We might need some standard drum sounds, hi-hat and snare, so let's go ahead and find those as well. Press this, and now you can see SD is for snare drum. Even though there's a lot of claps in here, in my mind a clap isn't really a snare drum, but that really doesn't matter. What? Alright, let's load them. And again, you can see there's lots of different samples, and I really like that about this, because samples really do tend to drive lo-fi sounds. Last but not least, we'll find the hi-hats. So now that we've loaded all the samples, I just want to go ahead and save, because I have had a bit of issues with saving on this device. So now we'll just have to wait again. And it is a bit heavy on these waiting times. We'll just go ahead and set the tempo of the project. You just press this value now, and then you can see the BPM and the swing. We'll go ahead and get it nice and low. Yes, thank you. Go back. And now we're ready to punch in our drums. So this works a bit different than the Electron devices, even though I think that's what they're aiming for. But you have 8 tracks, and all tracks are the same. You can load samples on each of them, and also step trick samples, so you're not limited to one sample per track. So I'll go ahead and find my kick. See, this is the same kick, but in different qualities. This is the kick. To press in the step, we can just press the step and the sound we want on it, or we can press record and, as you usually do, press in the steps. Put the snares in where they're supposed to be. And now I want to make one of them longer than the other, so this works like many other groove boxes these days. You just hold the step you want to edit and then edit. Nice. You see, here's another problem. When you want to edit the step information, it actually deletes the step. Okay, let's try to filter out the snare. So this. I would love to be able to delete this automation data, only the automation data and not the tracks and the step values. But in this case, it doesn't matter much. Let's make a hi-hat. I love to automate the amp envelope once again to make these hits shorter, or maybe add some attack. So press and hold and then add attack, but then it's deleted. That's a bit better to my taste. I'm getting pretty tired of erasing and entering the same step again. There might be a better way. Maybe it's just me who haven't found it yet, but I think they should be easy to access or easy to figure out without having to Google or ask a friend. Now we have a simple basic beat. If we want to add a bit more interest in the hi-hat, we can choose another sample for each step. So we could maybe try, you can see it lights up, a different hi-hat sample for this one. Maybe so. Now I want to try and sample this thing, because it is a lo-fi sampler. So we'll pick a track, track 4, a sound, and then we'll choose function sampling. So here we have the sampling capabilities of the device. You can pick which input you would like to sample, and in this case I would like to sample the microphone because we want to have it as lo-fi as possible. I really like that you're able to sample even if it's not the highest quality. It makes so much sense to me to be to be able to sample outside sounds with a sampler, especially a lo-fi one. So I have with me my faithful kalimba, and I'll just try to make some chords. So now we have our sample, and we'll have to edit the start and end point. And I'm always a bit confused about the endpoint because you see it doesn't show it on the screen because the endpoint is way over at the other side of the sound, or at the end, of course. So I've caught myself turning this knob and thinking that it didn't do anything, but it does, you just don't see it. So we'll put it to slice mode, press slice, and then find the different slice points. Again, I think it's a bit tedious to make these slices. I don't know if they could make it more logical the way you would do it, but to me it's a bit hard to find my way around this device without having to consult a manual, but now it works. Maybe we could just record it in. So we'll go to pad. And then of course I would love to edit the data, the note data on where these hits are, and from my experience I could just press the step and then nudge it in the direction I would like to have it, but that doesn't seem to be the case for this one. Okay, let's just say that we're in love with this type of sequence and we want to add the effects. I would love to have some effect on the kalimba, so I'll go to the effect page. You can turn it on and then choose from a lot of different types. Maybe some type of reverb would sound nice on this one. We'll just try one. I like this type of effect, but this sound is already lo-fi enough for me. Nice. Now we can add some synth reverb and delay. In my mind I would think that once I've sent the reverb I could hear it immediately, and I don't know why I'm not. Maybe it's in this mixer section. We have 8 tracks, delay, synth, delay, reverb. Maybe we have to turn it up here. Okay, that's it. So again, I find myself saying this often, but this device doesn't really react the way I want it to or the way I think it should. I always have to check twice or go into another menu or do something that isn't logical for me. So that might be the greatest or the biggest down point with this thing, is that things are not where you expect them to be, or they do not behave the way you expect them to. Okay, let's try another track. Let's find a sound. Maybe some type of bass. See, why is the kick drums labeled on the synth? Maybe it's because it's from an 808, but I would just imagine that the tags would be on the bass drum and not synth, but maybe it's synthesized bass drums. I think that's why, but it just doesn't make logical sense to me. I think you can edit the tags yourself, so it's not a big deal, but your immediate thought is what's going on. Now we have a bass, let's try and get a pad of some sort. Now we have something that has a resemblance of a track. Let's just try the mod page for this one. Let's see where we can send it. So maybe we'll send a bit to the pitch. That's a classic. In conclusion, the LoFi-12 XT is a very capable sampler. It does feel a bit cheap though, and the workflow isn't really to my taste. Maybe it's just that I haven't spent enough time with it, or that I'm too familiar with the Electron devices. And if you made it this far into the video, I would just like to say thank you. Maybe you consider subscribing, cause then one day I could receive an actual product instead of buying one on my own. Not that I mind it. Bye bye.